Hello, everybody. Yeah, we're actually making a second one. I don't know how this happened. The first one seemed to be, I'm assuming it was popular. We didn't get any bad comments on the first one, so we're going to try a second one. We might, I don't know. I just going along with it. So again, I have my great crew member. I think that's the right way. So yeah. I don't know. As you can see, we're really very professional about this. I've got my Hawaiian shirt on. I don't know why, because it's really hot here at the moment. So, okay. So what are we going to talk about this one? We're actually going to do Enterprise, the Enterprise series.
Yes.
Now, I don't know about my learned colleague, but I actually love the Enterprise series. I
loved Enterprise.
I loved it. I loved this series. I think it was a very underrated. I think it was a very underrated series. I'm a big fan of the first season. Got a little bit weird in the second and third, and kind of went back on track a little bit in the fourth. But the middle two are a bit odd for me, but I'd still like them. Now, for those of you who are not great Star Trek fans who may have stumbled across us and thought that they've just fallen into an alternate universe, which is highly possible with us, Star Trek basically started, or the Enterprise series started, it was the last kind of version of the original canon. I'm calling it original canon. Many people wouldn't, but I'm still putting it as original canon. It started in 2001 and went to 2005. It was 98 episodes, so 4 seasons. Now, there was a 5th season, and I want to touch on that before we finish up at the end of this, why, from what I've heard and what I believe, caused the 5th season not to happen. And I don't believe in a lot of the stuff that the internet talks about. Through the club, we've talked about this at our meetings, and there's a lot of different viewpoints on this, and I've got one that probably sits way out there. And again, for those who don't know, it was set in the 22nd century, about 100 years or so after First Contact. And I didn't know this. I don't know if you knew this, Sean, that there was actual breakups in the series. Season 1 and 2 were the Temporal Cold War. Season 3 was the Xindi.
Yes.
And season 4 was the founding of the Federation. They're actually categorized. I didn't know that, to be truthful. I didn't. I knew there was a Temporal War kind of underlays through the whole thing.
Yes.
But I didn't know it was broken up into individual kind of, what are you going to call it? It's probably story arcs, I suppose.
Yes.
I did not know this. I was doing a bit of research beforehand. Yes, I can read occasionally. It's very rare that I do read, but I can read. And I stumbled across this through a fan site, and I kind of actually was taken aback. I had no idea that they'd done this. I was surprised.
Oh, wait. Just one thing, mate.
What?
You want to tell everybody who we are?
Oh, no, probably not. For Secrecy Act, probably not. All right, look, basically, we're going to back up again. You can tell I'm a very professional YouTuber. Not really. I'm captain of the USS Southern Cross. We are a chapter here in Melbourne, part of the greater Starfleet, the International Star Trek Fan Association. So basically, and then my learned colleague, Sean, will basically introduce himself.
Indeed, and my name's Sean O'Keefe. I am the creator, editor, and webmaster of trickyfanfiction.com. You can see the banner more or less behind me. And yes, you can find me at that website. And yes, always looking for new stories, and we've got plenty of great fiction, but also on trickyfanfiction.com you not only find great novels and great short stories, but there's plenty of great video that I've found on YouTube and Vimeo and elsewhere that you can find and stream.
Now, I think that's the important bits out of the way.
Yes. Now we can get back to.
We can get back to the fun. That's the business side. I don't. I want to start off with. We're gonna go through the crew, but I want to start off with something that annoyed me. There was a few things that annoyed me in Star Trek, but in the Enterprise, I tend to find now that I find it a lot fun to go through each episode and pick out all the little bits and pieces and all the wrong bits and all that. I find that fun now for me. I think it's old age.
Guide to Star Trek Enterprise.
Yes, I find the NX class too modern for the period.
Too modern.
Yeah, it looks too much like the Constitution class. It looks like a modern Starfleet vessel.
Well, it had to be a bit of both.
Yeah, but if you look at the original concept of the Enterprise, that was meant to be the XCV 300, the one that looked, the big cylinder.
I've got one of them over in the cabinet if you want to look at it.
Yeah, it's like the Vulcan ship.
Yeah. The ring ship, yeah. But mind you, I was reading an article just the other day. The actual launch date for that was only about 30 years before this. So I always I thought that was, yeah. But mind you, 100 years time difference. I don't know. Mind you. You might say that it looks a little too modern, and I can understand and respect that. In the end, this thing's got the name Enterprise on it, and we want it to be recognizable to the fans as well. You want to make it look vaguely Enterprise-ish, but not too much like the original Enterprise as well. So, they gave it a dish, they gave it the nacelles. They gave it the saucer, they gave it the nacelles, and of course they didn't go so far as to give it the secondary hull as well. So they made it look relatively like the 1701. They just didn't go too far. So yeah, at least it didn't go past warp 5. I mean, most of the time she only flew along at about warp 4.
Yeah, no. But,
and mind you, and what she left space dock with was barely enough to light a firecracker.
Yeah, I mean, but the funny thing is, as I was researching Enterprise, I found out that the concept for the nacelles came from Star Trek: The Next Generation First Contact, when they showed us the Phoenix for the first time. But actually, and this comes up in many, they actually talk about this through a couple of the episodes, and you actually see pictures up on walls. Very quickly, I will admit, if you've got I don't think you could have seen it in VHS. You would have had to have, I'm not even certain you could have done it in DVD. I think you would have had to wait until streaming came along. And that's where a lot of people are picking things up now. But you actually see a ship that they reference as the very first Phoenix, as, I'm going to get this completely wrong, the Bonaventure.
The Bonaventure.
Yeah,
it's an ugly looking thing, yeah.
Yeah, they actually say that was the first warp ship, not the one they used in First Contact. So
if we the 1000 Bonaventure, and I've seen pictures of it. It's a weird looking.
It's a weird looking ship. But for me, with where we are with technology today and where they would have been talking about then, I don't think it would have been too far-fetched to believe that would have been the real. Now, what I'm getting at, I am getting at something here. I know I've gone completely.
There is a destination to this journey.
Yeah, there is, but it may never get there. My argument is, if you had gone with that as your first Phoenix,
right,
then and you'd gone with from that to the Enterprise NX, it would have been too big a jump, because where did the nacelles come in? I think it was almost like with First Contact, they were laying the ground rules for having ships with nacelles early on in the piece. Now, I might look. Everybody might be watching this is going to go, and no, you're talking out of you know where. And look, I may be, but I just find I always thought the NX class was just a little bit too modern for humans to. If you take the Phoenix out of the picture, you could never have got to the NX class at all. You physically couldn't have.
Well, what advancements did we have in 100 years from the Wright Flyer? I mean, mind you, think about it. The Wright Flyer took to the air in 1903.
Yep.
Right? And the SR-71 took to the air in the 1960s. We went from barely getting into the air in 1903 to breaking Mach 3 in the 1960s.
True.
So, in the space of 60 years, that's a humongous technological leap.
I'm not disputing it, but if you look at that from a point of view, if you break it all down into a technical side, you've got something that's pulling you or pushing you that way, and then you've got the power coming out the other end. Now, through a propeller, you've got the air coming in, going back behind you. With a jet, the same thing. You've got air coming in and jet. In the Enterprise, and I'm using, of course, the Bonaventure as the mark here. If you'd use that and then gone to the NX, they've basically redesigned spaceships completely. And as humans, we don't do that tremendously well. We stick with a format that we're comfortable with. So if they were able to get warp drive out of the Bonaventure the way it was laid out, then why would you have nacelles?
Well, I did some reading along the way. Part of the problem with the twin nacelle layout and creating a decent stable warp bubble all along was creating a stable warp field, and that's where that came in. Where it's blasted. Where,
I will add pictures.
You know that little device. You know that. Where are we?
Just show it, and I'll add pictures later.
The little device that sits between the booms.
Yeah.
You've got your nacelles. You've got your twin booms, and you've got your pod between the booms, right? All right. Yeah, you got your pod between the booms, right? That creates the stable warp field. Okay, and I remember doing some reading. That is what created the stable warp field to be able to enable the Enterprise to fly along at warp 5 and create that stable warp field. That was part of the problem all along. And
I just would have thought that if we would have followed the Vulcans a little bit more. The Vulcans didn't use nacelles; they used
rings.
Yeah,
and they created their fields a whole different way.
I would have thought we would have followed that more than gone with nacelles. But that's if you jump onto forums going way back to when Enterprise came on, there is a mountain of stuff about this.
Think about it. I mean, how practical is it?
He's off. He's off. He's off.
All right. Now, seriously. This is, that's not practical. All right.
Well,
that's not practical.
But it does graduate us into space travel.
seriously, this thing is driving me nuts. But that is not practical. Yeah, you can put up a picture of this, the CV 300, but I can see this here. And you've got these gigantic rings, and all you've got is this boom with a pod out the front of the darn thing. It's not practical.
No, but it would have been a gradual leaping of technology, I would have thought. And it goes back to the very core of what Star Trek is. They try to stick with science.
Yeah.
And that, the XCV would have been a gradual leap. And then I could have accepted, a decade or so later, and then cells pop out. But
yeah,
that only works, of course, if they didn't use the Phoenix in the first contact. Once they did that, going backwards was not an option. They had to keep going forwards. I know everybody. I got off track here a bit, but that's one thing that's always bugged me about.
Yeah, you always thought it looked a little too modern.
Too like TOS. It looks too much, a bit too much.
Yeah,
like
I think that was the idea.
I know it probably was.
It's a long road getting from there to here.
Yeah.
And,
now we're gonna reference the song. Now we're gonna start referencing the song. Oh,
of course, I had to do that at some point.
Oh my God.
Yes, and we'll just leave the song there because not everybody loves it. But
then they changed it, and that really ticked everybody off.
Yeah, mind you, I read something very interesting. You don't have one of these, do you?
Yeah, I've got one of these.
You got one of these.
Yeah.
Where I was, I saw an interview with the guy who designed this, and the guy was a serious genius. At the back, in front of that pod that I was pointing out, the entire engine bay is modular. And so the entire engine section could slide out of the primary hull and be replaced.
See, if you looked at the episodes when you were in the engineering room, it looked like you could do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you could slide the entire engine out, the entire engine bay out of the ship and replace it and pop in a new one.
It didn't look like you could do that.
Brilliant. Yeah, he designed it that way.
Yeah.
The entire engine compartment we see there is at the back of the primary hull and could be replaced. It was modular. It could be replaced easily.
No.
Absolutely brilliant. The man was a genius. I think I might be right. I'm not sure. I think it was Doug Drexler who designed it, but don't quote me on that.
I will quote you on that, and it will come back and be bad if you're wrong.
Yeah, I'll use it. Yes.
Okay, let's start with the crew. So let's start with Jonathan Archer, played by Scott Bakula. I've always liked Scott. I like Scott Bakula. I've always liked him as an actor.
Great actor.
Personally, I think he played Archer really well. I think he's one of those kind of iconic actors who the character will always be him. I don't think you can put anybody else in place now.
And mind you, it's a huge ask. And mind you, it's a huge ask on Scott Bakula's part, but on the writer's part as well, because you've got to create a character here who is, he's not Kirk, and he's iconic as well, because this is a guy who's got to be a trailblazer. And he's the first Starfleet captain who's going out into the universe, and he's got to figure out what a Starfleet captain or a real Starfleet captain's got to be.
Yeah.
He along the way, he starts putting together the first ideas of the Prime Directive.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's figuring out we need something like this Prime Directive. Yeah, I mean, because he starts hitting upon some really sticky questions.
I particularly like the episode where they go to a planet. I can't remember the episode, and they give medical help to these advanced people, but they've also got a secondary species of humanoids who are not as technologically advanced. But
I saw that one earlier.
Fox finds out that they're actually they're evolving and the others are dying out. Now, this causes a massive dilemma, and one of the very primary situations with the Prime Directive. We cannot.
Dear Doctor.
Yeah, I love that one, because this is the first time you see a Starfleet officer
Yes.
having to make a decision, do we get involved? Now, as normal human beings, we'd want to get involved, and this is what we do. But do we change the course of a planetary and a civilization because we feel bad?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, do we go in there and impose our ideas? I looked at it and yeah, I know. We come in. Do we come in and impose our ideas? That's our question. Should we? Yeah, it is feared. Do we have the right to interfere? I suppose is the main question. Do we have the right to interfere? Mind you, let me flip this another way. There was one question I saw in a recent Star Trek movie that really cheesed me off, and that was Star Trek Into Darkness. And that was when when they stopped that volcano from exploding at the start of the movie. Now, it turned out the entire population of the planet, there wasn't a very large population, were worshipping that stupid volcano.
Well, it's big, it's ugly, and it kills people. Let's get real. I mean, I'd probably be nice to it.
And if that volcano had erupted, it would more than likely have wiped out the entire population, intelligent populations of the planet right then and there. And the admiral chewed out and demoted Kirk for interfering. And his argument was, who are we to determine the next course of evolution for these people? And I thought, what next course of evolution for these people? They'll be dead.
This is where one of these,
and there's nobody else on the planet that's even remotely intelligent. Surely at some point there's got to be a point where we can say, do we stand out back and just let them die, or when we can do something? It's like if we drive by and see a baby on the side of the road and nobody's helping it, do we leave it die? No.
If I was, I'm going to play devil's advocate here on that situation, right? There's two things with that. One is, if we weren't traveling the stars, we wouldn't have known anything about that planet and the volcano and eruption. That planet would have erupted, the civilization would have ended. We would have come along, decades later and gone, this looks like a primitive civilization. We wonder what happened. End of topic. The other one is, and this is the old, you can't go back into history and kill Hitler because somebody else would have popped up. If we help them, and in 2,000 years, this civilization becomes an evil empire throughout the universe. This is what I think Roddenberry, from my point of view, and I could be right off the ballpark here, but this is what Roddenberry and Star Trek were trying to, when they did do episodes like that, this is what they were trying to say. If we do something, there is a consequence, whether it is good or bad, there is still a consequence of whatever we do.
If that's the case, Kirk shouldn't have saved the whales.
Yeah, technically you're correct. You're absolutely correct with that. This is where the conundrum comes in.
And the consequence should have been, Kirk shouldn't have saved the whales and the Earth should have been destroyed.
Because the Earth, realistically, we created the problem in the first place. That was the consequence of killing all the whales. Therefore, our civilization at that point should have ended. I know. And this is where it gets so, but on the flip side on that, we're only tampering with our own with our own civilization. We're not tampering with someone else's.
That's true.
This is where it all gets very it gets very grey when you start looking. But I find this kind of stuff, when Star Trek does get a good plot and a good kind of situation like that, I find it really interesting to go into it, to really delve into it. And you go and go, well, hang on, there are so many moral questions and moral hiccups throughout the whole thing.
That's true.
I mean, you look at Archer through when he was in the Xindi, he made decisions during the Xindi conflict that were interesting at best.
Great is a nice way of putting it.
I'm trying to be nice here.
Great
I mean,
is a really nice way. That's more than generous. I mean, seriously, when he racked off with those guys' engines, that was crossing. Yeah, that was really going for too far.
Yep.
I understand that he believed he had a need, but wow. Yes, in the end, the mission counted, but he left those guys stranded. And yes, they would have gotten home eventually. But wow. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough call, I know.
There was a lot of other tough calls that he made. Like, he wanted to go in, and I think he was willing to create genocide across the Xindi culture in order to defend. Now, again, forgetting about the future of Starfleet or the Federation or the Prime Directive, this is an individual who's got a reasonably powerful ship under his belt, probably nowhere near as powerful as Xindi, but he's still got a powerful ship. And he was sent in with orders to save the Earth, not to basically, if it comes down to a civilization between us or them, let us die and protect the civilization.
No,
save us.
Save us. Yes.
Yeah, save the human race against all odds. Yeah. Now, that's a pretty open-ended and dangerous kind of order.
And they weren't mucking around when he took Makos with them.
Oh, no. This is why I think they put the Makos on. They wanted you to see that they were actually being very serious. They got soldiers now. This was no longer a ship of exploration. This was a ship of war. This was set up for war.
That's right.
And I think through the Xindi, even though I personally think the Xindi War was a little bit, I think they took the story arc a little bit too far, because we just didn't have the Xindi conflict. I think it just went a little bit wrong way.
I think the arc was one of the best things that Star Trek's ever done.
Look, I like it.
Absolutely brilliant. Mind you, some of the episodes were just fillers. E Squared was interesting, but it was a filler.
Yeah. Because you've got this whole situation, and you have to do it in like a 20 episode series. I mean, you were never going to be able to fill that out. They probably could have done that in half a season.
Yes.
Some
of the early ones were just fillers. But it was great. It was a great.
I liked it because you got to see a captain. I still reckon you wouldn't have sent one ship in. You would have sent whatever other ships you had in to do whatever. You wouldn't have sent a single ship in.
I mean, Columbia wasn't ready yet,
but they still had other ships.
Yeah,
and they could have.
Enterprise was the only Warp 5 ship they still had.
I know, but I just think sending one ship in, and I think that's why they actually sent the Andorians in, because I think they realized, hang on, this is one ship against this entire civilization isn't really a match.
Thank goodness for Shran.
Oh yeah, I want to talk
his own ideas, but
I want to talk about him later.
It's awesome.
But I think Archer. Now there was something very interesting about Archer that I read, and I thought, now we're getting into some really weird stuff. The 26th century guy, the mystery guy that we never actually saw.
They thought he was Archer from the future. Yeah, I did read that theory that he was Archer from the future.
I think that was
one of the theories.
Oh, look, there's so many different theories about that guy. But when I read the one that they said it was Archer from the future because of, and I'm thinking, but you saved everybody. And yet now you're going back and you're actually causing the problem that created the Zindi War. That to me doesn't make sense. That's where you get, that's
But
where,
mind you, he might simply be making sure that it happens.
now you're grasping at straws.
No, it's just a simple case of no. Well, look, let me put it this way: if he's in the future and he's looking back, and somebody in the future is trying to undo his past, then he's simply trying to make certain that the past he took part in happens.
Yeah, all right. But he's from the 22nd century and this guy was from the 26th. So how did he get to the 26th century?
Mind you, he's already been to the 31st century.
Well, this is true, but I just think...
But mind you, I never put any stock in him being a future guy.
No, I just... that was a bad theory, to be honest.
No, I thought somebody was smoking something interesting.
Okay. The next one was to Paul, played by, I'm going to say her name wrong. I never was able to say her name properly. Jolene Blalock.
Yes, Jolene Blalock. Mind you, I read about how hard it was to get her to play the role.
Why?
Well, they'd been casting for the role. Mind you, you are aware that they were originally planning on having T'Pau as the character, but apparently originally there was some issues with copyright for the name, so they went with T'Pol instead. But
oh, I didn't know that.
But they were casting for the role, but they really did want Jolene for the role, but they kept asking her agent and asking her agent and asking her agent, and the agent kept saying no, 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 no. And on the very last try and on the very last casting call, they said yes, and they came over and she secured the role.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that role was causing them so much trouble, to be honest. I thought
well, she would have had it on the very, I'm pretty sure she would have had it on the very first try. And I'm pretty sure really they wanted her for it all along. But if they'd said no on that last time, I'm pretty sure we would have had a very different T'Pol.
Oh, look, I kind of liked Jolene doing the character.
Great. I think she was really, really good.
Again, me being picky here,
yeah.
I just think her tight uniform was really unnecessary. Yeah, it was unnecessary.
She was the 7 of 9 of the Enterprise.
I know. And again, you've already done the 7 of 9 thing. You should have had, if you looked at every other Vulcan you came in contact with on that series, there is not one person wearing her uniform at all.
Yeah, it was totally unnecessary. They should have just put her in a Starfleet uniform as soon as she was given a Starfleet commission.
Yeah, even if they didn't want to put her in a blue one, put her in a... I like the jumpsuits. I think the jumpsuits made a lot of sense.
Yeah, they were brilliant. Pockets.
I know. Pockets. But you had movement in them. Then they make, because NASA guys, or not as much today, but they did wear the jumpsuits.
Yeah. And
they made sense.
They had mission patches on them and everything.
I know.
They were awesome.
But they should have put T'Pol in a like a grey one, maybe. I could go with that, but I just see the factor that they put her into this tight clothing.
Yeah.
There was no necessity for it. It wasn't actually helping the story. Like, oh, excuse me, I'll just choke and fall off the chair.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, because I'm alone here and all I have is a cat, so that could end badly for me. I'm going come home and the cat will have the little bib on and don't worry, you caught me. Yeah, I've just completely digressed then. But no, I just thought having her in the tight thing, there was no necessity. It didn't help the plot. It really didn't help the plot.
No, it actually I just lacked credibility as far as I was concerned. I mean,
I mean, I thought with 7 and 9, I said, but you could understand the medical concept. It's like a burns victim would have the stocking on to protect the skin. 7 of 9 has had all these implants removed, so the suit would protect. I get that. That kind of, you could almost stretch your concept. I know why they did it. Don't get me wrong, but you could stretch it out to be a medical. But with T'Pol, there was no reason.
There's no excuse. No excuse whatsoever.
But I like Carbon Creek. I think that's one of the best.
I loved Carbon Creek.
I love Carbon Creek.
A delightful story.
I
love the way that it ended. It's like, well, you asked for a story.
Yeah.
And she left them, scratching their head thinking, did she just, tell us a furphy or not?
Yeah, I do. I've always loved Carbon Creek, and I kind of like, and I'm not trying to condone this, but the fact that when they went into the Expanse, she started taking the chemical to help her exist, and you saw that even a Vulcan could get addicted and the logic side, and that also helped when she became more understanding of a human crew, and you could see the Vulcans and the humans. Because I don't know, what do you think? And I'm going backwards a bit here.
Yeah.
What did you think of their premise that there was a lot of animosity between the Earth and Vulcan at the very beginning?
I'm not the least bit surprised. And mind you, I'm not sure that that was the original plan. I like what they did with season 4. With the whole story arc of and how far the Vulcans had drifted from.
Oh, you mean the Kishara and all of that?
Yeah, with the Kishara, and it was very clever because from the start of Enterprise, the Vulcans they were just obnoxious. They were really obnoxious. And they weren't anywhere near as coldly logical and as we saw in later Trek series, and so we were beginning to understand that there was something wrong here.
Do you believe that the Enterprise version of the early Vulcans is the one? Because you don't see that in TOS, Next Gen, or you see their arrogance. That's a completely different thing.
They always believed they were superior.
Yeah, but you believe the Enterprise version
necessarily emotive? No, and they were a lot more emotive in Enterprise than they were later on, and with what we saw in Pajem, the whole idea of how paranoid they'd gotten towards the Andorians, how they were treating the Andorians, their paranoia with them.
That to me didn't make. I thought it was a good episode, but it didn't make a lot of sense because paranoia is an illogical feeling.
Yeah.
Now that kind of broke away from what we all had learned from watching Star Trek for multiple decades, and some of us have actually watched it for decades. That broke away from that logical side, because what I saw at the beginning of Enterprise was an illogical, emotional race making decisions. This was different to the one that we saw in the TOS. These were very logical. Every decision they made was logically based, no emotion. Even Spock, being half human, really made a lot of decisions were very unemotional. But here, all of a sudden, we saw this race in a completely different light. I don't know if I like that light. Did you like the way they did that, or?
At first I was wondering what's going on. And I don't know if that was the original thinking, the plan. The friction between humanity and Vulcan was clear from the start. I was wondering why in the very first episode, Archer was so mad at the Vulcans. and why the Vulcans seem so so intent on holding humanity back. It seemed that the Vulcans, it didn't take too long for me to figure out that the Vulcans were just dead scared of the humans. What kind of not insanity, but what kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? What kind of chaos we might unleash on the universe with our gregariousness. We go out there and we like to spread our friendship. We like to meet people. We like to create communities. We like to bring people together. Let's have a party. And they don't do that. You know, they put everybody in boxes, well, that's pretty much the way they do things. They put everybody in boxes and they keep them apart. And we have a relationship with them. We have a relationship with them. We have a relationship with them. We don't necessarily want them to come together. And that's pretty much the way they work. Mind you, humanity, we want everybody to come together and let's get to know each other and let's see if we can find the things that bring us together and you know that can bring us together, and so we can end the conflicts that are tearing us apart. That's the sort of things, and that scared the hell out of Vulcan.
But do you think
that's what they had held them back?
You think the Enterprise version of Vulcan, right, harmed or enhanced what we saw in later? Like, did it make Vulcan look better or worse in fans' eyes? I suppose I'm trying to get it.
To begin with, it probably made the Vulcans look worse, but without an idea of what might be going on for the fans, it may have put people off watching the series.
I think it did, actually. I think
if you can't give the fans an idea of where the show is going, and what the plan is, if you don't give them a vision of the future, then the people are going to be lost and they'll lose interest.
This is where we come down to where we talked in the last podcast, where you need some backstory and some future story. You can't just be talking about the now. You might get away with that with some other science fiction shows, but with Star Trek, you need to see where they've been and where they're going and where they are. And I think very definitely in the first season of Enterprise, they were just talking about the now. They weren't giving us an understanding of what
Here's Enterprise, they're about to begin their journey. To where?
Yeah. I think
to encounter. Take for instance, if I may, take for instance, one of the biggest missed opportunities they had from season one, because I was looking over the list from season one. Where was it?
Okay, Skippy. What?
No. It was Silent Enemy.
Oh yeah.
Silent Enemy. They came across those dudes who just attacked them for no apparent reason, and eventually they had to overload the phases. To fight them off. And they went away. Never saw them again. Mind you, it would have been nice at some point if we had some idea of who these guys were, and maybe to have them come back. Or what about those weird CGI guys with the big heads who came on Enterprise and they had a tough time fighting them off? Never saw them again.
Oh no!
Seriously, these were great opportunities to create further story arcs. Maybe they could become enemies that we have to combat again later on. Maybe not, but you don't just give us one story and then drop it.
I know, but I mean, if you look at canon and you look at TOS, go back a bit, the Starfleet did do a lot of work in areas where the Orions operated to sort of free the people up. Now, they do a couple of episodes with the Orions, and that's about it. and we don't hear, but we know there was a lot of backstory with the Orions
Yes.
in canon, but we don't hear anything about it. This is, I think, one of the biggest, and this is going to get me into trouble. I know this is going to get me into trouble. But this is one of the biggest problems that shows have when they do prequels. Now, you've got two courses. You either go with what is already known and you make stories weave into them, or you go off on a complete another tangent and create stories that just never happened. Now, I think in Enterprise, they kind of tested the water with stories that never happened, and then they decided when they went with the Xindi, that was they went right. They turned a right corner and never came back.
Yeah.
Now I know. Don't get me wrong. I liked the Xindi season.
Yeah.
But I see that season as an independent season. I don't put it into Star Trek because I know it didn't happen. It physically didn't happen. Throughout the entire canon that you read, the Xindi conflict never happened. So they've created, and
I know it hasn't been mentioned anywhere else. Yes.
And this is the thing that annoys the living something out of me. We're talking about a time war that's happening. So all the events from the very first time Daniel turns up to the very last event where they're in World War II, and then everything gets reset except the Xindi War. I find that somewhat complicated. Everything throughout time got reset, so it never happened, but the Xindi War never got reset. But yet it was the capitalized component of the Temple Cold War, but it never got reset. So how did the Temple agents in the 31st century miss that one? I mean,
perhaps they just made sure through some kind of, I don't know, diddling that it did.
That's a very technical term.
What's the word? Yeah, diddling will have to do.
I think we're going to make that a scientific
They used a MacGuffin. They used a MacGuffin and they just hung a lantern on it. And they just did something to make sure it did happen. In the end, mind you, if it was one thing I do recall from the Xindi arc was that if they didn't do what they did then they would have had much bigger problems with the sphere builders later when the Enterprise J battled them in the 26th century.
Yeah, again, this where I know I'm treading on thin ice here, but this comes down to, again, throughout all of the canon series, you never hear a word about the Expanse. Now, something that big, you can't just shove into a corner of space and say.
But I doubt that they would have called it the Delphic Expanse again after all of those. Good grief! Those, for want of a better term, gaseous areas, dust clouds. It wasn't a huge dust cloud. Evaporated after all the spheres disappeared. All of that disappeared. I mean, the Delphic Expanse, for want of a better term, vanished after all of the spheres disappeared. They were gone. The Delphic Expanse just became another section of space full of stars.
And then, of course, you've got the problem. If you've reset time and the Temple Cold War never happens, then all those events in the 29th century, the battle inside the Delphic, they never happened.
Well, if they never happened, then Enterprise should have returned to the future in one piece with an intact crew.
And this is where time travel story plots get very confusing. And I think
time travel stories cheese me off.
I think they made a mess. I think they made a complete mess of it. I honestly believe, and yes, I have way too much time on my hands. I actually did a graph on a whiteboard and I worked this out. And yes, I'm a very sad person, so just go with it. And I worked it out, and it doesn't make sense because once you fix one thing, all the others can't exist. You end up in a temple paradox.
Wayne, you remember when we had to, I'll put it that way because I started, when we had to watch JJ's Star Trek movie, And we had to watch his reboot movie. And we were told, oh, we have a new timeline. And of course, the fans were all going, what about the original canon? And we're all going, oh, thanks, JJ. You just wiped out what about 50 years of canon, and you just did that without caring. And what about the rest of us? Boo hoo. And
I like Boo Hoo.
Here I am. I've been writing for Star Trek for years, and what does that leave me? So one of the first things I started doing is I'm thinking, what would it take to undo that? Now, of course, I've written 3 novels, my Fractured series that I've got on my website. But I sat down and had to figure out what it would take to actually undo what Nero did. And it gave me a migraine. It took me about a week to figure out what would be required to straighten that out. And it took 3 novels to do it.
I'm not saying, look, I had whiteboards all over the house that
wow.
And I had more rubbing out than I had actually lines of stuff. I agree. It's trying to backstep through all of that mess. It's very complicated.
Yeah.
But I just think that a lot of the writings that they did and a lot of the story arcs, once you fixed it, shouldn't have ever happened. And it kind of it's the problem of making the time travel arcs very complicated. You lose yourself.
Well, I seem to remember Gene Roddenberry hated time travel, and I don't blame him. I really don't blame him.
Complicated. It's if you're going to do time travel, you've got to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of, I think they got lost in their own adventure, which I could understand. I love time travel novels. I actually love them. And I've written a couple of my own short stories. And no, I don't publish them because I'm a very bad writer. I do it for my own fun. I've written a couple, and yeah, you kind of get yourself, you end up with a headache and a lot of other aches too. You start throwing things. But enough of the time travel. Let's get off that.
Actually, I was thinking missed opportunities.
Oh, yeah, go back to missed opportunities.
When it came to Enterprise, because Enterprise had some great stories. It also had some stinkers. And I'm looking at the first season. I hated Acquisition.
Which one was that again?
The Ferengi episode.
Oh, yeah.
I won't, if I'm watching the series and I see Acquisition come up, I skip it.
Yeah,
I won't waste my time watching it.
Yeah, there's a couple I'll jump over because I think and
Rogue Planet, which is just mind-numbingly stupid. Because a planet floating out in the middle of space, going nowhere with no external influences, would be a solid ball of rock. And there's no way it would have any heat in it, no way it would have any energy in it whatsoever, and everything in it would have been dead a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, yes, it defies any science, and I just find the entire idea behind it stupid.
Yeah, but a rogue planet, they know scientifically rogue planets exist in reality, right? They do
life on it?
Yeah, hang
in an M-class environment?
Yes, I'm getting there. And they move in an irregular way through until they come up against something a lot bigger. They estimate now that if there are rogue planets out there, that they come in contact with any kind of star or gravitational field, they're going to go directly towards that.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a planet.
Yes.
Yeah, you're not going to have a planet for millions of years, which would take to get a civilization floating through space, just missing everything. It just, you're right. It's a physical impossibility, and I don't know.
At the very least, it would have had to have been torn away from its original solar system. But
And the force
it
it would have
should
taken,
have been dead ages ago.
force it would have had to have been expelled from its solar system would have been immense.
Exactly, and it should have shredded the planet. It should have just killed everything on it. I mean, seriously, how dumb do they think we are?
I don't know. Look, I mean, science. Okay, fiction, science. I'm going to try. I'm going to try.
Yeah, this is a great story, dude.
I'm going to try and do science fiction as good and fiction science as bad. But fiction science, having a rogue planet with a civilization is a great topic.
I would rather watch Twilight than watch
don't.
that.
Oh, don't.
It's more believable.
I had to sit through that and once, and it's one of the. It's mind bending, that movie. It's just. I like fantasy movies. Don't get me wrong, but that's crap. It's bad acting. Okay, we're really off the ball here, but yeah, I get what. I get what you mean. I think Enterprise had more toilet flushing episodes than most of the others. I feel.
It had some real stinkers. That's for sure.
It did.
Mind you, admittedly, it didn't have the way to Eden.
And what?
It did not have the way to Eden. Only the original series could have.
There's nothing wrong with the way to Eden.
The way to Eden sucked like a Dyson vacuum cleaner. Seriously.
There's nothing wrong. I can see
that episode could have sucked a golf ball through 20-foot of garden hose.
When we get to the individual episodes, that's probably going to be the first one we attack after the series. Is we'll attack the Eden one. That one could be. So you can look forward to that, everybody. That's going to get really ugly by that time. I agree. For me, there were probably when Enterprise made a little stinker, they made a stinker.
Yeah,
it was a real stinker.
That's
Some of the others you could get away with, and think, God, this is a bad episode. But Enterprise made a couple of bad stinkers. I get the feeling that they knew the writing. Oh, bless you.
Thank you.
I get the feeling that they knew the writing was on the wall and coming up in through the third season.
Yes.
And
we won't mention These Are the Voyages then, yes.
No. But oh God, no. Yes. That could be a second one. That would have to be one of the. I don't know why they did that.
Everybody hates that one.
Yeah, that's the series.
That was supposed to. If I remember reading somewhere that the crew, as in the actors, like to sign off with the Demons and Terra Prime. The double episode.
Yeah, I like that one. It's a bit harsh, but I like it.
Great way to finish out the series. And then we were given These Are the Voyages.
Yeah, I think I kind of like the way they ended that with Archer's speech and all that, and it was a good. And they should have ended it.
That was a nice touch. But killing Trip Tucker, seriously,
I don't know why they did. I've never understood that. But if you actually read the books of the Federation and the Romulan War, and if you ever get a chance,
brought him back. Yes,
if you ever get a chance, everybody, they're actually not a bad read. They are a little bit hard to come by nowadays. You can, I think, get them on Kindle and Google Books and all that. It's probably easier to get them there.
Mm-hmm.
But they are actually, if you like Enterprise, they are actually a good read. And I would suggest everybody getting a copy of the whole series. I think there's 5 or 6 in the 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure.
Yeah, in the series. If you get a chance, get a hold of them because they're actually a really good read.
And mind you, while you're on the topic.
Okay. While we're on it, what topic are we on?
No. Enterprise stuff. I've got some great Enterprise era videos on tricky fan fiction.
If you get a chance, jump over. I'll put the link back in again. It's on our first one, but I'll put it in this. Sean's got some good stuff on there, and it's actually good reading. It's
My favorite though Enterprise video, of course, is the movie Star Trek Horizon, which is freaking awesome. It's 40 minutes long, and I thought it was brilliant.
I don't mind it.
Yeah.
I got opinions on that, but I as a fan, yeah, that's my little note.
It cost them a fortune to make it, apparently.
And it was all in storage because that's all CGI. The whole thing's pretty much.
The whole thing was CGI.
Yeah, and most of that
did a great job.
I think they used thousands of hard drives, huge hard drives, terabytes, and all that to keep all the information. And it took forever to render it because it's a massive operation. But yeah, look, I'll say it and then we'll move on. But I want to do a couple of episodes after we do all the series. I want to do a couple of ones on a couple of the fan ones because I love watching the fan ones.
Yes.
The fan videos. You can see some of the acting and special effects may be not great, but the stories in them I think are actually great. Some of these people who have done these are very gifted writers, and I think Star Trek, and I'm hoping not get in trouble, but I think Star Trek should have actually gone looking to fans to get some story ideas. They would have been a lot better, I think.
No arguments there. I've seen some great fan stories. Absolutely great fan stories.
Yeah, I think they missed huge opportunities with that. I think they didn't give the fans. I shouldn't, but yes, I'm going to give Star Wars a plug. Lucas Industries and all that, and that do give their fans a lot bigger plugs and assistance than Star Trek. I have to give them that.
Well, speaking of stories, you've seen, of course, you've seen Star Trek Into Darkness. When I saw that movie, I realized half the movie had been lifted out of one of Diane Carey's books. It was lifted out of Dreadnought. Because
I've got it, but I've never read it.
It's a great book. If you read it, you'll find that there's Admiral Rittenhouse was secretly building a Dreadnought class starship to prepare for an oncoming war with the Klingons and Romulans that he believed was coming, and he was planning to overthrow the Federation Council.
Very similar, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, he lifted half the story straight from that novel. And I'm thinking, why isn't Diane Carey's name in amongst the credits? Because it was so similar, it wasn't funny.
I'm not going into, and we're not going to get into an argument with J.J. Abrams because that's going to get into a lot of trouble.
Anyhow, back to Enterprise.
Back to okay. The next actor, Trip Tucker, played by Connor Trinner.
Charles Tucker III.
I think Tucker, for me, was actually one of the better characters. I liked Tucker's character. I liked where it was going. He was a very professional character, but he didn't mind doing whatever and being a bit of a kind of a larrikin.
Yeah.
I think. And that made it a bit more humorous and a little bit more fun to be on the crew. But he could play the serious. I think during the Xindi conflict, they probably twisted him to be a bit more too serious. I think by killing his sister, although it was a very good story arc to see him go from hatred to understanding, was actually a very good story arc. I think they just twisted it a bit too hard. I think they would have got similar.
Somebody dying, mind you, for most of us, as soon as somebody had killed a near and dear sister to us, we'd see all bright red very quickly.
I'm not
in a position like Trip Tucker, where we're flying around in one of the Federation's biggest warships. It's a great opportunity to get some revenge.
I think they did well, and I like Connor. I like Connor playing the character. I think
he's great. He always played it very down to earth. He's the sort of bloke you could easily see with a glass of beer and sitting in a pub having a yarn.
He was. If you actually look, similarities. He had occasional mannerisms and bits and pieces of Scotty too. I think that's me personally. I know others are going to have different opinions, but I saw occasionally he didn't mind bending the manufacturer's rules of the engine if he had to.
Yeah.
And they did a kind of a homage to the original one, where he did the cold shutdown and hot start again. That was a very homage to Scotty's one where they got it going. I thought that was a nice piece.
You kind of changed the laws of physics, Captain.
But if I'm Scotty, I can bend them a bit, you know. I just like that. I did, but I like the engineering characters. I do like them.
Yeah.
And I think
yeah, for sure.
Tripp that did a very good job, and I think his character was fleshed out pretty well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't think they neglected him. I think they gave him a fair bit of. If you wanted to get technical, sometimes I kind of got this impression that they were trying to do Archer and T'Pol as Kirk and Spock, which I think was bad. But hey, but every now and then I got this impression that it was Archer and Tripp, and they were the two main kind of individuals.
Yeah, it was a different dynamic. Mind you, I mean, you had the three of them. I mean, it was never just Kirk and Spock. It was Kirk, Spock, and McCoy.
I know, but McCoy was kind of always on the outer a little bit. It was kind of McCoy and Spock more than Kirk. I know Kirk and Spock had known each other longer, but it was kind of this factor. I felt that it was Kirk and Spock and McCoy and Spock. It was Spock that was the antagonizing in the friendship. He drove everybody insane, which I thought was funny. I loved watching how he.
You'd always trust on McCoy to tell it straight, and that's what Tucker always did. He'd tell you straight, you know, and T'Pol would be she'd be dispassionate, but in this case, she was a bit like Spock as well. She'd be dispassionate, but not completely dispassionate. She was in touch with her feelings, and the further along you went, the more, well, for want of a better term, the more feminine she became.
That was because of the expanse and the mind meld she had. But I kind of thought it was a good thing in the TOS. You started off knowing that Spock was half human, so he had emotions already, and he was doing the opposite. He was trying to suppress his human emotions. Here we've got T'Pol, who's full Vulcan, and somehow comes in contact with her emotions, and now she's got to. They're going to come out, and she can't suppress them any longer. So you see the other arc of Spock, which I thought was actually a pretty damn interesting storyline. You saw it from other aspect.
Well, talking about Jolene Blaylock and T'Pol, I did hear a rumor that they were thinking about bringing her back for an appearance in Strange New Worlds.
Oh,
because she'd be young enough to still be around.
Yeah, it'd be what? Strange New Worlds would be about 70 odd years after that factor. So yeah, she'd easily be, because hang on. I don't know if I actually got that. T'Pol was supposed to have been born in 2088. So yeah, that would be
about 180. That would be about 180. Yeah, she could easily be she'd be elderly, but she'd be within the average Vulcan's life.
Well, what was a Vulcan could last at least till about 360, 380 before they really started.
Oh, I thought it was closer to 250, but
I think there was one or a couple they were talked about in Next Gen that they were up into the 300. I may have misinterpreted that. I will be corrected on that.
Yeah, but T'Pol could easily still be around, and I'd love to see Jolene reprise the role in Strange New Worlds.
I'm actually really enthusiastic about Strange New Worlds. I'm really waiting out for it.
May is what I hear.
I'm hoping, but yeah.
No, they've got a release date.
Oh yeah, but is that for the US or for Australia?
US, but mind you, that's online, so that'd be on Paramount Plus. So it'd be.
I might have to get Paramount Plus. And no, I'm not I am not being paid by Paramount Plus to do any kind of adverts. I'm just thinking.
No, neither of us are. I'm just saying what
I want to watch Prodigy, and I want to watch. I want to watch the fourth season of Discovery. So it's on Paramount Plus. I'm running out of choices or arguments not to get on it now.
Mind you, actually, speaking about the later seasons of Discovery, at least we have seen one effective Enterprise in Discovery, and that is that the temporal Cold War did have an effect on that we've seen in Discovery, and that is in the late in the 30. Well, they've arrived in the 31st or 32nd century. I'm trying to remember.
32nd.
32nd century. When
because
they find that time travel's been outlawed.
Yeah.
Because of the temporal Cold War.
Yeah,
and their rival there has actually broken the law because they effectively used time travel to get there. And they actually had to cover it up. One of the first things they did when they got there is they upgraded the ship and renamed it, rechristened it in a way to try and cover up the fact that they had arrived from the past.
Which I find really, I mean, you're blaming a group of people for a crime or law
they were committing. Yeah.
That they had no idea that they were committing, and you're blaming them. Yeah, that's enlightened. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. That's hard old. And never mind that once they'd pointed out, of course, that they were doing it to save everybody. Yeah, okay. I think we can let that one slide, but we digress. But mind you, so at least they're nodding to Enterprise with that. And I loved. You haven't seen season 4. It's not much of a giveaway. But season 4, one of the first things they did at the beginning of episode 4, and you can find this on YouTube easily, is they do a reveal at the very start of the episode where they show a new space dock where they're upgrading ships called Archer Space Dock. And as they reveal it, you hear the music for Enterprise.
Okay. I might once I've finished this, I might jump on and have a squizzy.
It's absolutely gorgeous. And so it's a beautiful nod and love to Enterprise right there. I almost teared up when I saw it. That was gorgeous. And smack dab in the middle of the space dock was Voyager. Voyager J. So it was a lovely nod to both series right there. So,
next one. Who we got? Okay. Hoshi Sato, played by Linda Park. Now, I've got issues with this. I've got issues with Linda
Park. Or you don't like the character?
I don't like the character. She's a Starfleet officer.
Yeah.
And she really doesn't want to be there. And I'm thinking, then why join Starfleet if you don't want to be there?
Because she's incredibly gifted linguist.
Yeah, but she doesn't want to be on a ship. She's basically a liability on the Enterprise.
Ooh, that's a bit rough.
Well, I don't think so. You know, she is a liability on that because you're a smack like was it not the Silent Enemy? It was the other one where the big bulby guys came on board, and she had to talk this other alien to help them to fight it.
I know, he had to actually encourage her to talk.
No, you're in the middle of an emergency. You've got your professional and elite crew, and you've got to now stop worrying about what's going on with your ship to talk one of your main bridge staff into doing something that you've ordered her to do. Sorry, if you've got to do that to a crew member, then that crew member shouldn't be on board the ship.
Yeah, well, Hoshi, she went through an awful lot. Are you aware of the end to Hoshi's story?
No.
The end of Hoshi's story is quite tragic, and it was actually revealed in the Mirror Universe episodes of Enterprise. And you remember how in the Defiant, the Mirror Universe counterparts were looking up the Prime Universe's careers on the screens. The Hoshi and her family were on, I think it was Tarsus 4, along with Kirk, when the plague, so the crops had been wiped out, and yeah, along with the young Jim Kirk. And she was amongst the people of the planet who were chosen to be killed. Do you remember?
I did not know that. I must have completely faded out of when that part of the
she was probably much older. That's probably why she was chosen to be killed. But yeah. So she was, yeah. You know, you remember what was the name of the episode? Yeah, the original episode where
about
what was his name? The Great Caridian or whatever his name.
Oh, now that's going to annoy me. That is really going.
I'm looking it up.
That is going to annoy me.
I love Google.
Yeah, I just can't type fast enough. That's my problem.
No. Where on earth is it?
Kodos. Governor Kodos.
Executioner. Tarsus 4, wasn't it?
Yeah, Tarsus 4 colony. Yeah.
Thank you, Tarsus 4. So she was on Tarsus 4 when he decided to wipe out a certain chunk of the population, and she was one of the colonists who was killed. So poor Hoshi met a very sad end. But as I said, she was a very gifted linguist, and she was the one who created lingua code.
Oh yeah, and she helped with the universal translator. Look, I just think they made her for the first season, especially
a chicken.
I wouldn't have
gone a bit of a chicken.
I wouldn't have gone that harsh a word. A bit of a
reluctance.
Oh yeah, all right, reluctance. Let's go with reluctant. I just think they made her too reluctant. I think they went too far with that. I think if she'd had hesitation, that would have been a different thing. But to see her come apart on the bridge under stress, that's not what you want. Now, you theoretically, an individual that high up and on the bridge crew wouldn't have got there if she was like that. If they were like.
She can't be too bad. After all, I'm just reading here that she may have suffered from space sickness and claustrophobia, but in observer effect, it was revealed that she was once dishonorably discharged from Starfleet for running a floating poker game and breaking the arm of the Starfleet instructor who tried to break it up because she has a black belt in Aikido. So she can't be a complete wuss.
I don't understand what they were trying to do with her character at the beginning, because I don't think.
I mean, if she has a black belt in Aikido, you think she wouldn't be quite such a pusher.
Yeah, I just think they made her look. I liked her character later on, but the first season, they kept playing this this softer character where you're just getting a bit bored with it now. All right. They've been on the ship now for a couple of months. You would have thought situations would have changed, but her character really didn't change for that first season. I'm thinking, come on, guys, they should have toughened up a bit by now and got it sorted out.
Mind you, I would have loved. I mean, she endured a lot, especially during the Xindi arc.
Yeah,
and especially what they did to her, the end of the Xindi arc. She could have suffered brain damage.
I'm going to cop flack for this for anyone who watches this. I get that because I know Hoshi's like Linda Park and Hoshi is actually a very popular character. I know that, but I just think that first season the writers weren't doing her justice. They were not doing her.
No, they weren't. But yeah, they weren't. I mean, mind you, she wasn't the only character that she wasn't.
No.
And they played silly gags on her, like that time when she had to crawl through the duct, and we found out that she was claustrophobic. And then, of course, when she came out of the duct and snagged her top on the duct, and she appears at the door covering her chest because she's not wearing anything.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a silly gag.
I don't get when they do things, and I'm not Well, I just don't get it. Those things are not needed in Star Trek because you can tell a better story. You don't need to do that to tell the story in Star Trek.
Mm.
But that's me. I mean, and I'm going to cop flack for this one. I could see it coming a mile away. So next one.
Oh, actually, if I might finish.
You go.
This is one thing that I don't understand. It's a little voyagerish, actually. And one of the things that makes me scratch my head, because like poor Ensign Kim, she spends 10 years on Enterprise, and Enterprise is on her voyage home. And guess what Hoshi Sato still is? An ensign.
What?
She was still an ensign.
Yeah, I've got to admit.
10 years as communications officer on the USS, sorry, on the, not USS, but on the Enterprise. And she's still an ensign.
Yeah, I got to admit, I don't fully understand
surely
that.
she should have been promoted by then. On the Defiant records, when she retired, she was lieutenant commander. So at some point, somebody gave her a.
But she must have jumped like mad, because if she was 10 years as an ensign, she's jumped ranks really quickly by the end of her career.
Yeah,
and you don't jump ranks that fast. Well, you shouldn't be able to jump ranks.
Somebody must have. Well, she must have jumped straight to full lieutenant.
But you shouldn't be able to do that. Theoretically, you shouldn't, because there's like, 6 or 7 or more ranks in between.
I know, and you go from ensign to lieutenant JG, then lieutenant, and from there it's lieutenant to lieutenant commander. Then you've got full commander. And
but they've also, and this is again very debatable.
Where you come from?
Well, no, it also, because a lot of people believe that Starfleet would have followed the naval things. So you've got midshipmen, and we know they had midshipmen because they were in POS. So you had midshipmen, petty officer, first class. So you have all of them in there. Hoshi would have had to have gone. You should only be able to jump 2 ranks at a time.
True.
Jump from ensign to lieutenant commander it's just an impossibility in that short period.
Yeah.
I honestly, I didn't know she was a lieutenant commander at the end, and I didn't realize that she was still an ensign. I kind of blanked that out. I must have blanked that out.
All right, who do you want to talk to? Do you want to do English, or do you want to talk about the Doctor, or do you want to talk about Travis?
Let's go with Malcolm Reed. So Dominic Keating.
Another poorly underused poor fellow.
Yeah, I think he was very poorly underused, and I think they made him very pompous.
Mind you, they also gave him the rough end of the stick. Mind you, talk about stereotypical. And mind you, they made him a stiff Brit.
Yeah, step up a lip, the whole bit.
Exactly. He just became your typical stiff Brit.
Yeah.
And I felt sorry for Dominic, because he became just your cardboard cutout Brit. And that's sad, because I know plenty of Poms who are anything but. I know plenty of Poms who are the life of the party. And oh my goodness, and they can make you laugh as soon as they look at you. And yet, but this bloke, he was about as stiff navel as you get.
They kept him
I wouldn't know how to laugh.
They kept him 2-dimensional, and I kept him. They didn't even
put a cardboard cut out of him there, and you wouldn't have known the difference.
I know. I think, again, as you said, he was very. They underwrote for him completely. They tried to make him more interesting when they brought Starfleet Intelligence and his special.
Yeah, with the Section 31 arc.
But
the most interesting thing he ever said was when he was talking about T'Pol's bum.
But I hated the factor of Section 31 being brought up.
Yeah.
In Enterprise, I hated that. I'm thinking, Oh, we're going to go there, are we? We're going to go to Section 31 in Enterprise. I get it.
Is desperate. I mean, that's desperate when you're bringing out Section 31. Seriously.
It's just, it was pathetic. I think it was pathetic. I mean, I know, again, there's a lot of Section 31 fans out there. There are an enormous number of Section 31 fans.
The only thing I want to see done with Section 31 is I would like to see Empress, what's her name?
Giorgio.
Yeah, Giorgio. I'd like to see her developed into a Section 31 series because that would be interesting.
They were going to, but I think it's been canned now.
Bugger.
I think
really
I think they're now putting all their eggs into Strange New World.
Yeah.
Worlds.
Well, yeah, it's good because she's such a great actress, and it would have been a great story.
Look, I've never been a big fan on Section 31. I openly admit that.
The Department of Dirty Tricks and Bad Relations. Yes.
But if she was doing, well, I may have watched it just to be able to see her act because I do like her acting. But I think it was a low situation to bring Section 31 into Enterprise. I don't think there was any need to do that at all. There was nothing needed there.
Yeah.
I do like the explanation of why the Klingons in TOS look like they did. I kind of thought that was very very clever. Created an augmented virus, and it created
the augmented virus was a fascinating story.
I think that was actually very, very well done. Whoever came up with that should get a pat on the back because I think
it was a brilliant idea. I think that was the Reeve Stevenses who came up with that idea.
And you can see
Klingons their smooth foreheads to explain the TOS series. That was brilliant.
And you could see
we can understand Worf going, we don't talk about it.
Yeah, and that made sense.
Yes.
And they kind of implied that by saying that they were genetically engineered. Oh, okay, now we understand why you guys don't talk about it. It fitted, but the other parts didn't fit well with that episode. I think they should have stuck with the genetic engineering of Klingons, and they should have stuck with that and not brought Starfleet intelligence in.
Just leave Section 31 out entirely. But yeah, poor Dominic, he just wasn't given.
No, he wasn't
really good material, and
he was given some good
Malcolm
stuff.
Reed could have been a really interesting character, but they turned him into a cardboard cutout.
They tried to give him stuff in the 4th season, but it was too late by then. It was miles too late. You couldn't develop a character in about 4 episodes. It wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, it was sad. It was just unfortunately he was just your standard stiff Brit.
He was technically an extra, I think, and that was it. He was an extra to fill up, to do lines, to give Archer and the other main character somebody to talk back to, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
And I think that was pretty bad. I would have liked to have seen his character develop because I think he had a lot of scope. I think he had a huge amount of scope.
When you compare him with Trip Tucker, and Trip Tucker had some great moments.
Oh yeah,
with him and T'Pol and their daughter, who they knew was going to die. That's a gut punch moment.
Yeah, I know.
That's writing. That's a gorgeous moment. Those are the moments that actors crave. And what has Dominic Keating got to look forward to? Talking about T'Pol's bomb. I'm sorry, Dominic.
I feel sorry for
Dominic.
Dominic.
If you're watching this, you have my sympathy.
I feel sorry for Dominic on that. I do. I really do.
Yes.
Okay.
If I have a chance to write a story about you, Dominic, I'll do you justice.
The next one, let's talk about Travis Mayweather, played by Anthony Montgomery.
We're in the same boat, brother.
Yeah, I don't think they tried to flesh his story out with the Horizon.
Yes. So the son of boomers. Yes, he had some interesting stories there. And
He had some good potential. And in all honesty, if you wanted to, I think
the girls loved him whenever he took his top off.
But Travis did a lot better than Malcolm. He did a hell of a lot.
Yeah, he was total beefcake. But he was, but yeah, he had some great stories as I loved in very early on in the piece, showing his backstory where he kind of found that sweet spot in the Enterprise.
Yeah,
it's like, what are you doing? And he's sitting on the ceiling.
You also got to find out from his perspective, and you found out a little bit of tangible and technology snippet from a starship there, that within somewhere in there you've got this weird little piece of physics that happened inside a starship. I just thought that was really good. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, and he was able to tell people what life in space truly was like.
Yeah, and they were
most of them, as far as he was concerned, he was like, "You're all newbies. I've been at this all my life."
Yeah, I think he was even born in space, wasn't he?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so I didn't mind Travis. I didn't mind the character, Anthony. I think he played him quite well. He was a pilot, so he had to be a bit cocky, I think.
Yes.
I think he played that fine line between being really, really cocky and obnoxious to just being a cocky pilot. I think he played it well.
Yeah, no, I think I did a great job. It was fun at times too. Especially when he's flying down in San Francisco and wondering why there was a bunch of P-51 Mustangs shooting at him. It's like, what? That doesn't happen every day of the week.
I think that was good. He was a good one. I think they did justice to his character, and they let him grow, and we got to see him.
Yeah, it could have been used some more, but he at least had some growth.
Yeah. Let's go to Dr. Floss, played by John Billingson.
Oh yeah, at least of all the characters, at least he had some decent fleshing out.
But
how many wives did the guy have? 4.
3. He had 3 wives.
Oh, 3.
Yeah,
well, that's
3
enough.
wives. He also had a Starfleet officer who was intrigued with him. So technically, you could probably say he had 4 partners. But I like Enterprise because they actually finally showed an alien in a position of authority other than humans.
Yes. And admittedly, that's one thing that's ticked me off time and time again with Star Trek. I mean, they keep saying, yes, we're a Starfleet vessel, and and we're out there and we're meeting all these guys. And Starfleet's made up of many different species. Yeah. Why aren't our starships manned by different species? We're not seeing.
I know it's bugged me. It really. I mean,
we see Vulcans, yes, but they look just like us.
Yes.
But we finally get Phlox, and he looks different, and he acts different.
And that's the part I like. He's not acting like a human. Oh. He's acting like a completely different species. That you would expect them to act.
He acts like a denobulum, and
he's got different morality
on so many different things.
Yeah, and this is the part I like, because in TOS, if you calculate it, they've got about 115 to 120 species in the TOS, in the Federation. And you hardly see any, in fact, you don't see any other species at all. But in Enterprise, there's no Federation, and you see more aliens than you see in the whole lot of them. That's the one thing I give Enterprise, is that they do show diversity of races, of civilizations.
Oh, yeah. Enterprise is huge on it. We had Andorians, we had Vulcans, we had, we got to see plenty of, oh, come on, Sean, think. What are they? With Snouts. We're seeing more of them in Discovery now, but...
Tellarites?
Thank you, Tellarites. Yes, yeah, we're seeing more. Mind you, Tellarites. I mean, there were four main species that founded the Federation: human, Vulcans, Tellarites, and Andorians.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and the Tellarites are often completely overlooked. So yeah, so you gotta love the Tellarites.
Well, I think that's one thing that draws me constantly back, even though it's only one or two different ones, but it's the one thing that draws me back to Enterprise is because you see other races, you see other species, and it's not just a species that look human. And I'm not, don't get me wrong, I like the Bajors because I like their backstory, but they look human. They look human.
Yeah, absolutely, they do. Yeah, but oh, yeah, that would have been interesting actually. I mean,
Right.
Enterprise was said. Well, Enterprise was. What did I? Was that? Did I read something recently or what have you? But seeing Enterprise was set 100 years, well, way before the Next Generation. It would have been an interesting story if Enterprise had encountered the Bajorans before they met the Cardassians.
Well, they'd been the Cardassian occupation had lasted 70 years, I think.
Yeah.
So in the 24th century, so 2340s or thereabouts, date back 70 years from there.
There's no reason why Enterprise couldn't have met the Bajorans before then.
See, I'm going to have to do maths now. You got me doing maths.
Exactly. Well, I mean, Enterprise was around 200 years before the next year.
Say 20. What is it? See, I can't even type now. 2340. Let's say that minus what 70. I'm going to go 70. I think it was 70 years. So that would have taken us back to 2270. Enterprise was 2021. So yeah, we could have seen the Bajorans at their height of their civilization.
Exactly.
And I think you're right, because we would have seen them with their caste systems, with their religious caste systems, and their brilliant build, because they talk about the brilliant architecture. We only get to see a really small glimpse.
Right, they did have their caste system that they tried to bring back. That's yeah.
Actually, I think you could have got away if again, but this comes down to you would have needed extremely good writers to have been able to write it. So it would have fitted in with canon. But then again, canon doesn't seem to be as big as an important thing anymore as it used to.
Yeah. Oh, mind you, speaking of Phlox, there's one thing about Phlox. Mind you, you mentioned Phlox as being a doctor. He's alien. He had his alien ways and what have you. But one thing I did love about Phlox is that his doctoring wasn't just with electronic.
Oh no.
He used natural therapies.
Yeah.
And you know, he had all these cute little species and what have you, and he put his osmotic eel on you to help cauterize a wound and what have you. And it's like, and yeah, at first the you know, they were going, do I really want that there? And after a little while, the guys were just sort of like getting used to it. It's like, oh, I'm over it.
But this again comes back to their alien roots, because they were open, as Phlox constantly said multiple times. He was in the interstellar medical exchange, so they came across and they accepted all sorts of medical, whatever worked, whatever helped people or a species, they used. And if that meant sticking which we're doing today in our medicine, we use leeches and maggots, genetically engineered maggots, and other things to use. So we're actually stepping backwards. So yes. I agree with you. I think that was a really, it's a small little touch because it kind of goes unnoticed.
Yeah.
Because, oh yeah, they're crazy. They're using weirdos. Let's go on. But it's there, and I think it's a nice touch.
It was a very nice touch. But yeah, and Enterprise was interesting. I mean, aside from the main cast, you had some great supporting characters.
Oh yeah,
and of course, if I may, there's my favorite one of the lot is Mr. Everybody.
That's where I'm getting. That's the last one I was going to talk about.
Oh, if you want to save him, I respect that.
No, we're going to talk about him now. Let's talk about him now because I think he probably the great. I love this guy. I do.
Mr. Everybody, Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah, I love it, and I love him as Commander Shran. I think he probably.
Yeah, Tylex Shran. I mean, he was awesome, Mr. Everybody. Mind you, he was even one of the. Oh, good grief! I was mentioning them earlier. He was one of the. Good grief! He was Acquisition. He was one of the. Ferengi, thank you. He was one of the Ferengi in Acquisition too, if I remember rightly. But
okay.
Yeah, but he.
That wasn't the only time he was a Ferengi. He was a Ferengi in
yeah, he was Brunt.
DS9 and
He was Brunt in DS9. Yeah,
I actually like Brunt. I really do.
And he was that evil dude in DS9 as well. I can't believe I've gone blank on it.
Hang on. I know what you mean. He's got so many characters. It's very hard to keep track of.
Jeffrey Combs. I mean, he's done everything. As I said, he's Mr. Everybody. Wayun. Yeah, there we go. Wayun in DS9. And he even played Tyron in DS9 as well. Good grief.
He's played, hang on. I didn't know he played this many. He's played 10 characters.
That's right. He was Krem in Star Trek Enterprise as well.
It was he was Tyron in DS9. He was Brunt. He was Wayun. He was Officer Kevin in DS9 again in the great episode. Pennick.
Not to mention, he was also Agamas in Star Trek Lower Decks.
Oh,
he was an evil
just started
who wanted to take over the universe.
I've only just he was too. He was Krem as well in as a Ferengi. He was he's done a voice for the game, so he's Soldoc in Elite Four.
As I said, Mr. Everybody.
He's played 10 different characters.
Yeah, Pink in Star Trek Voyager and Sunkatsi.
Oh, he was also in DS9. He was a holosuite character in Vic Fontaine's place.
Yeah, there you go. So he's Mr. Everybody. Seriously,
yeah, I love him. I love him. I think actually he could play Star Trek all by himself. Really.
Give him enough time, he could be every character.
He could. I think, but in Enterprise, I love it when he turns up as Strand. I think that's
calling him pink skin, and he does a great job as an Andorian. He makes it believable too.
Yeah, but the animosity, the arguments that he has with Archer, and that is so funny. It's just I love watching him as Shran. I do. I love. I really wish that I know they brought him back as often as they could.
Yes.
I really wish they brought him back more because it was so funny watching him.
And Shran had an interesting story arc too. He wasn't just a two-dimensional, we'll drop him back in every now and then character. I mean, his character went through phases. He had a family at home, but his love affair with his officer on his he had a love affair with an officer on his ship, which was illicit. He had a daughter outside of marriage that cost him his relationship at home. And of course, then they had to go rescue his daughter in These Are the Voyages. He had his rise and fall. Mind you, in the end, of course, we know that Starfleet remembered him by commissioning a USS Shran.
I wish they'd done. In fact, I'm actually surprised that he doesn't, bad grammar, hasn't got more books written about him in the Star Trek universe.
Oh, I'm sure that there are some books out there for which ran on.
I've never. Well, then again, I haven't really gone looking for a long time. I'll openly admit that.
I'm sure they're out there somewhere. You're going to look for them, aren't you?
I am. Can you tell?
Yes. Going to look for them.
I'm going to look.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a cult of Jeffrey Combs out there somewhere. Or at least, well, I'm sure there's a Jeffrey Combs fan club. Because as I said, the man's Mr. Everybody. I mean, he creeped me out in one movie. What was it? The House on a Haunted Hill or something like that. Wow, that guy just totally creepy.
Okay, there are a couple of books out there of him. I'll stand corrected.
There you go. Well, I hope you don't stand corrected because I'd hate to see you walking wonky.
I walk wonky anyway, so this probably makes me walk better if I stand corrected.
Oh, there you go.
That's for me. That's all the characters. Have you got anything to lovely?
Well, I was glad to see that they did the link. Yeah, actually, can we pause for a sec? And pause the recording for a sec. I need to.
Again. Okay.
So yeah, I was thinking one of the things I really loved in the fourth season was it was quite clever, I think, with the whole Serenite storyline.
Yes.
And that was introducing T'Pau, because there was a great link between Enterprise and TOS, bringing in T'Pau, showing her in the early stages and how she was linked to the Serenites, and bringing the Kishara and helping restore Vulcan society to what it should have been. And mind you, whoever thought it would be a great idea for Archer to carry a Surax Katra, that was, I thought, was an inspired idea. I thought it was a really inspired idea. Archer at that moment would truly understand, I think, for at least a little while, what it would be like to have the mind, to understand the mind of Vulcan. And then, of course, for him to risk it all to help T'Pau to restore the Kishara and to help the Vulcans to start getting it right again. I think it was a great story. But to bring T'Pau back and to introduce her at that time, to bring that, to create that bridge between Enterprise and TOS, I think was a great idea. It's a really good idea.
I liked, I kind of, when I watched that episode the first time, I just watched it for its entertainment value. And then when I rewatched it a couple of times, as Star Trek fans, you constantly rewatch episodes. No, none of us do that. I kind of thought at the originally point, why didn't they give the Kishara to Paul? Because this was something that I think, because she didn't fully believe in it all and everything. But as I watched it, I kind of countered that decision and started to believe that that actually what they did was the right thing, because they allowed. How am I trying to put this? I'm trying to find the right word. So they allowed Paul, to explore her relationship with her people, her past, and her mother.
Yes.
As to Paul, and not as someone else. And I kind of realized that you're right. I think Archer desperately needed to come full circle and understand the Vulcans completely. Because he was, even though when he came back from the Xindi conflict. He was a changed man, but you could still see that there was a lot of animosity that he had towards the Vulcans. I think the Kirshara episodes finally gave him all the missing pieces and allowed him to see the Vulcans for what they really were and are.
Yeah.
And I think the way they did it was right. I think T'Pol needed to see her past, her people, her mother, even herself, without any interference or any anyone else like Sarok being involved. She had to see it all for herself. And I think if she'd been having the Katra, you would have thought, well, maybe she's not learning it herself. She's basically being pushed.
Yes.
I think Archer needed to be pushed a little bit to see Vulcans.
Yeah. It's an inspired idea. It was a great idea.
I changed my opinion of it after I watched it a couple of times. It was one of those episodes I had to watch a few times to get my opinion to change in a different direction. I thought they made a mistake. I honestly thought that they should have given it to Paul and Archer and to Paul figure out how to get it to the head office of the Vulcans. But in the end, they did the right thing by doing it the way they did. There's my stamp of approval, guys. You did it right. I've said it. You did it right.
Yeah, I always loved Vaughn Armstrong's Admiral Forrest. I was very sad that they killed him off. They gave him a good send off in that he died valiantly, saving good grief. Ambassador Saval.
Yeah. I couldn't think of his name either.
In the blast, they saved him. He saved him. It was very noble way for him to go. Of course, it wasn't the last we saw of him. Of course, we saw him die again. When the alternate Enterprise was destroyed in the mirror universe. But still, he was great. I liked him. Going for the very start, it's like when the Enterprise is launched, it's like, don't screw this up.
I find it
really down to earth admiral.
I always kind of wonder. Why the writers and the producers decide to kill off one of the main characters towards the end. Is it to help with the story arc, or is it just to make a bit of a wow factor?
No, I think A, it happens. B, it shows that this is real, this is serious, and C, it really pushed, I think it was a real pivotal moment for Saval. I mean, it was a moment where it made Saval wake up, open his eyes and say, this human died for me. He did not have to do that. He could have saved himself.
I can accept that.
Yeah, he died for me. And there was a real wake-up moment. And Saval, from that moment, really started making decisions that weren't in his own best interest, but it was in the interest of the greater good. And it turned out, of course, as we know, that he was a Serenite. I know, spoilers, but he was indeed a Serenite. We should put a big spoiler alert up at the start of this video.
I suppose
I think is a giant spoiler.
I'll put something up and say, look, guys, just be warned. We are doing this. Look, I do agree with you. I think in that instance, it would have taken a huge event to have changed Saval.
Yes.
The only way realistically to have changed a situation like that was a death. And it had to have been somebody that Saval knew quite well. And Forrester was the individual he knew the best. And I think killing him off, was actually, when you say it that way and you look at it from that point of view, yes, I think it was the only way they could get the point, or Saval to a point, to go, well, hang on, something's not right here.
And what else would bring Enterprise running?
Yeah, okay.
And it's personal. It's personal for Zaval. It's personal for Enterprise.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially for Archer, because Archer was
exactly.
very well connected to.
Absolutely. I mean, no matter where Enterprise is, it's straight back. And they turn around and come running, and which they did.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, when you say it that way, you take away. I just find that in some instances, they kill off leading characters in, and they do this a bit in Star Trek. They do it in other sci-fis, but they do it in Star Trek. They kill off a main character, a very beloved character, and sometimes it's just for a wow factor.
Yeah, which is dumb.
If you're going to do something,
it's always got to be. You got to do it for a good reason.
Yeah, I do agree, but I fear that they do it a lot for the wow factor, and they don't. Oh, we've got to kill off the main character because it's expected. Well, why is it expected? Well, it shouldn't be. I mean, Star Trek shouldn't follow the standard plan and layout as all the other science fiction. Star Trek sets the guidelines for its own self, so you shouldn't be following other science fictions. And if that's what they're doing, okay, fine. But in Star Trek, we do what Star Trek does. And if you are going to kill somebody off, a main character, then have a very good reason for doing it.
If I kill off a main character, because I've written a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I know. And I'm only just getting through some of it. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, if I kill off somebody, it's for one of two reasons. One, because it is totally necessary for character development or to move along the story. Or two, the situation would be impossible or totally unrealistic if somebody didn't. Basically, if you've got 4 people in the car that's falling from the sky, somebody's going to die.
Oh, look.
The
bigger question is, how did the car get into the sky in the first place? But
it fell out of the back of a plane. But you get the idea. If it's a totally dangerous situation, okay, and somebody's going to die. One thing I find all too often is there are these situations where somebody pulls rabbit out of the hat, or there's MacGuffin or what have you, and it happens far too often. And I'm a bit more of a realist than that. And so in some circumstances, especially I wrote one book, What We Learned from History, where the situation was simply flat out war battle situation, and a ship simply fell from the sky and landed. It hit the ground hard in the desert. There's no way people are not going to die in that situation.
Oh yeah.
And I had some characters die in that crash. Okay, and I killed off 1 or 2 people that people didn't necessarily want to kill off. But somebody's got to die.
In that instance, I can accept. There's a necessity, right? Yeah. But I'm really big against this factor of killing characters off just to get a wow factor.
Yeah, that's just dumb.
I don't like that. It actually brings the particular series down, because you've lost a really good character.
Yeah.
And now what do? You've lost a whole story arc that you no longer can play with.
You've also ticked off the people who watch it. You've ticked off the people who are invested in the character.
I know, and this is one of the biggest things.
These are the people you're selling this product to.
Yeah, I know. And this is the biggest thing. What a lot of people don't understand is, and I can understand a lot of people who don't get science fiction or whatever, but when you start watching a science fiction, let's say Next Generation, it's 7 years long. You invest an hour each week,
yeah,
and you invest 7 years to watch the entire thing. Now, that is a huge investment for somebody. Now, you remember parts of the story arc, you remember episodes, you may even go step up and start talking about it to your friends. Then you may go one step up again and get onto forums. You may go again and join a club like USS Southern Cross. If you would like to join us, please contact in. No.
Plug.
And you may end up going the next level and doing what we're doing. So you invest.
Yeah.
Now, if you do something really stupid like that, people go, "Why are we investing outside?" I mean, prime example was Lost. Or I'm going into some contentious, but a lot of people said we invested all that time to watch Lost, and the last episodes were crap.
Or GOT.
Oh yeah, I'm not. I never got into
everybody hated the last season of that. I never even watched the first episode. I heard so many people growling on that, and just like, well, after hearing that, I ain't going back and watching that.
I've never even got into it. I just think
I saw some things in that from truly disturbed me. I think I ain't watching that.
No, there's look, that's for some people. I get it, and that's good. That's good. That's what. That's not my cup of tea. And I tell people that I don't. I'm not saying. I'm not saying you shouldn't watch it or whatever. I'm saying this isn't mine. I don't want to watch it.
Yeah.
But the investment factor that I think a lot of writers really don't take that into account, because people do invest an enormous amount of effort.
I understand that. I have done a fair amount of sales in my life. You know, I've had to sell computers, you know, and components and stuff like that. I understand what it's like to have to tell people about a product and get them interested in the product and encourage their desire to want to buy that product. And so I understand that when you're writing a book, you want people to want to buy this book. And especially you want them to be invested in the characters of this book. And so hopefully if you want to write another one of these books, you know, that they're going to like these characters enough to come back and buy another one. Just a slight digression. The only reason I kept watching Discovery was because of my love for Trek in general. I couldn't stand the characters. I was about 3 or 4 episodes into the first season, and there wasn't a single character I liked. And I have to find a character that I can invest in. I couldn't stand Michael Burnham. I couldn't stand the captain. I couldn't stand anybody. The security officer infuriated me.
I wanted
the hell out of me.
I wanted to put her out the airlock.
I mean, the first episodes of the first seasons, no, I couldn't stand anybody. I couldn't get emotionally invested in anybody, and the only person I liked at all, they killed off in the second episode. That was Captain Georgia. And it's like, and so I'm thinking, seriously, if you guys don't understand, you know, what it means to get people invested in your stories.
They're looking now. Discovery is Discovery.
I know we're digressing, but yeah.
I know we're digressing, but it will connect if I can get this to work.
Sorry, mate.
But no. I can't. If I can get it to make come out the right way, this should connect. Discovery is from that point of view now that they're looking for a larger demographics.
Yes.
They're not looking just for Trekkies, right?
Yes.
They're looking for the general population who watches a TV show, right? Now, when you look at Enterprise. Now, this was the last of what could be classed as the original canon, all right? Now, a lot of people, you go onto most forums and go back to where Enterprise stuff was around, and you will read that most people believe that Enterprise destroyed Star Trek. And that's I think is harsh.
Yeah.
Because Enterprise needed to be taken as its own independent TV series, Star Trek. The same as what Discovery's been done now. Everyone accepts Discovery as its own little almost alternative universe, alternative little bubble universe, and they're quite happy. You have to do the same thing with Enterprise. It is
well, and Enterprise they hadn't really gotten running yet. I mean, if we'd gotten into season 5,
see,
then yeah, that would be.
There's a whole reason why they didn't want to do a season 5. There's two main situations. One was that. Hang on, let me just double check something. I just what did I do with it? What did I? Oh, there it is. Oh,
your head keeps disappearing.
Yeah, my head does that a lot. It's actually very good at it. What the main problem, and I've just got to check a fact before I open my mouth here, because I've done this before and I opened my mouth and it was the wrong fact. I just want to double check my facts before I open my mouth here. No, that's
We still need some music here. You can always edit this bit out.
Yeah, I might have to. I think I might have to actually just get this bit out because it's taken me a bit longer than I'd anticipated. Okay, so basically, there was two main reasons, as far as I can tell, or as far as I can remember reading. Hang on, I'm just going to pause it for a sec. Okay, basically, the one of the main reasons, from what I've heard or read a lot, they didn't want to go into season 5 because they would have had to have done the Romulan Earth War.
And that would have been expensive.
Would have been expensive, and they'd already done it with DS9, and they were concerned that if they did another war one, they would have lost. They would have lost a lot of fans, and it would have bottomed out very quickly. So they were very hesitant whether or not.
What, because of after Zindi? Yeah, I see your point.
Yeah, one conflict in, and they would have. It would have been a bigger war. It was a massive war. So
it was a war.
They were a bit worried about that. They were also supposedly worried about what was going on in the world at the time. So it went to 2006. They were a bit concerned with starting a war inside Star Trek.
Yeah,
where that would have, how that would have affected their fan base.
Yeah.
Supposedly, now this is a furphy. I've never been able to prove this, but the studio that ran Enterprise was actually very concerned with doing the topics of war, because if you read some of the fan base stuff, it was a very bloodthirsty war. It was a really bloodthirsty conflict.
Yeah. The Romulan War would have been nasty.
Yeah, it was as nasty.
It wasn't exactly known for being warm and fuzzy.
No, and it was very nasty. And they were concerned with that, especially with what was going on in the world at the time, but just have finished or just have done the DS9 one. And they copped a bit of backlash with the DS9 being so war effort, even though they did a lot of sort of one-off episodes where they made it funny. You know, they did trials and tribulations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They still copped a fair bit of backlash for doing a war. Now,
Mm.
In
Yeah,
this,
the whole war was, technically it was more than one. The Klingon War and the Dominion War.
technically, yeah. So they were concerned. And they knew that if they did a season 5, they were going to have to touch on the war.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it would have been full on. Well, mind you, there a hell of a lot of the fans were looking forward to the Romulan War.
I know you have absolutely
people like myself.
no understanding of the fan base for that period, because that is the period where the Federation began.
Yeah, it's what drew them together.
Yes, it is. It's what created the Federation. It was in the war and what came after the war that created
the crucible that created the Federation.
Yes. And I think personally, this comes back to writers. If you had a really good set of writers who knew their Trek back history a bit, and there was enough of it around, you couldn't actually say, oh, there wasn't anything to get any information. There was enough. You could have written some unbelievable stories, and it didn't have to be all war. It could have been individual experiences and how people worked through the war.
Yeah.
You only had to do periodic battles.
Yeah.
Like there was probably 20 major battles fought during the war, only because it took so long to get to the battlegrounds.
That's true.
So 20 battles over a 20 episode season. You could have done, you didn't have to do every single battle either.
No, I mean, mind you, some of the stories could have been preparing for the battle.
Yes.
Or arriving to the battle too late to do anything about it.
You could have done it as going to the battle, then cutting to after the battle. You didn't even have to do the battle. You could have done the beginning and the end and the aftermath. And you didn't, so you could have done it without, I think, being too bloodthirsty, but I think
just throwing it out there, you could have had a Section 31 story.
I think everyone got jittery. I think that's what was going on. I think the studio got jittery that this was too close. If Enterprise had done it before DS9, I think DS9 would have not had their war.
Mind you, it's 2006, 2007. When did DS9 do theirs? 8-9 years before.
So no, Enterprise was 2001 to 2006.
Yeah. So and DS9 ended when?
Hang on.
DS9 started in 93, if I remember rightly.
93 to 99.
So, 93 to 99. So you've got a 7-year gap there.
I know, but they were still concerned. Well, no, because 99 to 2001, that's when Enterprise. I know what you're looking at 2005, but I think they were just. I personally think they were more concerned what was going on in the world at the time.
I still think it's chickening out. But I'm looking at I'm also looking at the ratings. The ratings when Enterprise began started with 12.54 million viewers. By the time Enterprise finished, it was 3.8.
I know, it was waning. There was no two ways about it.
Yeah.
I think that comes back to what I said before. Most people who watched Enterprise were not taking it as an independent, as its sort of self-entity. They were trying to connect it to the canon section of Star Trek. And I think prequels are always complicated and so are futuristic. So you can't, it's very hard to connect Discovery to canon because you're talking about 900 years into the future. Everything's completely changed. Our philosophy changed, everything. So you can't, the same with Enterprise. There was no Federation. There was no Prime Directive. We were just coming out of a war from 100 years ago. We were still technically, if you look up at canon, bits of original canon, we were still at war into the 2100s.
Yeah.
We were still fighting battles on Earth.
Yeah.
At the turn of the 22nd century. So
Yeah.
it was probably only about 80 years since we'd stopped killing each other.
Yeah.
So
no surprise there.
you can't, it's very hard to go canon on Enterprise because the advanced concept of morality hadn't been kicked in yet.
Yeah.
We were still an aggressive race. There wasn't any way around that.
Yes, it takes an awful lot to change the heart of man. But yeah, I'm just looking at the basic figures, and from Enterprise's first season to its last, it's lost half its viewer base.
Yeah, but they were also moving it around like mad.
Yeah,
I know in Australia they were moving it. They were moving it everywhere.
Yeah, it's still half. That's not good. So I'm not surprised they canned it. Mind you, UPN was an awful network to begin with. Yeah, but yeah, it wasn't on every day of the week to begin with.
Well, put it this way: you wouldn't have Picard, you wouldn't have Discovery, you wouldn't have Lower Decks, and you wouldn't have Prodigy, and you definitely wouldn't have Strange New Worlds coming out if you were waiting for the mainstream studios to pick it up. It's the Amazons and the Paramounts and the Disney studio. Even Disney Plus is independent from Disney itself. Yeah. So these are independent, kind of different studios picking it up. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have Star Trek on television because Paramount and CBS wouldn't pick it up. They just don't see the money in it.
But mind you, but I still agree with you. I still love Enterprise. Series.
If anyone's watching, and it's on Netflix and it's on Paramount. Not Paramount.
It's not on Paramount Plus.
It's not on that. It's on Amazon Prime. That's where I was trying to get to. For some reason, I couldn't get there. It's on Prime Videos. It's actually on there.
Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
No, it's on Amazon Prime. It's Lower Decks and Picard's on Amazon Prime. Enterprise is on Netflix.
Could have sworn I saw Enterprise on.
I've got both. If I remember rightly, it's on Netflix.
I will stand corrected to the better crew member.
I have all three. So
by all means, go and revisit Enterprise because it's actually. I think it's worth. I honestly think it's worth sitting down on a weekend and just binging on it. I think it's
absolutely. There's some great stories. I love watching the episodes that involved the Columbia.
Oh yeah, I think
XO2 flying. That was great.
I think they missed opportunities. They should have brought Columbia out earlier.
Yes, yeah.
They should have brought it out miles earlier. I think they missed great adventure opportunities having two starships out at once.
You bet.
I think they could have done with Hernandez. I think they could have done episodes of her, and I think they could have had a lot of fun with that. Having one of the first female captains to be doing something. And I liked Hernandez as a character. I think she was actually really good.
She was really.
She just did not get to do anything. I think, what was she in? 2 or 3 episodes, I think.
Yeah, she was only in a handful. It's only 2 or 3, if that, yeah.
I think, again, they missed opportunities with her and the Columbia. I have no understanding why they had the pulsating things at the back of her. That would have just been absolutely.
That would have given me a headache and nothing flat. They did not need to be there.
Let's go into battle conditions, go into red lights. We've got big blue lights belting out, pulsating behind us.
They did not need to be there. Yeah.
I mean, we've got glass on the top of us and we've got into stealth mode and we've got blue flashes coming out of the glass. I mean,
that was nuts.
I can't get that.
Yeah. But yeah, they had some great stories. In the mirror stories were brilliant. And seeing the TOS Defiant in the mirror stories was just awesome. And how true were they to the original series?
Yeah, I know.
They didn't do Discovery. They did. They were absolutely true.
Oh yeah, they were basically very plain models, and it was well done.
They didn't mess around. They were true to the TOS.
Yeah,
I love them for that.
yeah.
Everything there was absolutely true to TOS. I had to give them a total salute to that. That was just brilliant.
I think we've bashed Enterprise enough on this one.
Oh, bashed? No, there are only a couple of episodes that truly deserve bashing. I will say that they're my favorite episode of Enterprise. Do you have a favorite? You probably mentioned Carbon Creek.
I like Carbon Creek. I like the Western one. I like. I think it's in their first season when they come up on a planet that's been kind of manipulated by another species, and they get involved and help. I can't think of the name on that one, but there's probably about 3 or 4 that I really, really like.
I mean, I love some of the story arcs, but if I had to pick a favorite episode, it would have to be Regeneration.
Oh yeah,
the Borg episode.
Yeah,
That was awesome. That was really cool.
having
the Borg for an episode was just cool.
I think they did that nicely, connecting Cochrane and then connecting the whole thing together. And it did make sense when
Yes, it did.
When they did destroy it, there would have been wreckage across Earth. And kind of, I never thought about it until I watched that episode. And you kind of think, well, yeah, all right, it makes sense why that wreckage would have been there, and no one's found it before. That's a bit odd.
That was clever. It was a very clever episode.
Yeah, it was actually a well done episode. And they did it in such a way that the Enterprise could take the ship on, because it hadn't fully become Borg yet. So it was actually almost kind of equally matched with firepower. So I could go with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a well done episode. I did like that one. And it filled in a few little blank spots, which I kind of, and they didn't muck up filling it in, where they've done that before, where they've tried to fill in those blank spots and they've mucked it up. Yeah. I like the way they filled them in. So
isn't futile.
No, not when it comes to old humans. Some pick on old humans, we fight back.
You bet.
I think that's it, don't you? Until the next one, which
we will do it again.
We'll figure out which
one. Same bat channel.
Same bat channel. Same bat place. Same bat channel. Thank you, Shane, for coming.
Sean.
Sorry, just at the time when you said it, I got a message coming up from the guy I get to come over and help me with my lawns, and he's Shane. And, Shane, and then thought, thanks, Shane. I'm thinking, as soon as I said it, I knew it was wrong.
You silly, twisted boy.
I am. No, not silly. I'm just twisted.
You don't know your goon show very well, do you?
Sorry?
You don't know your goon show? No.
I haven't. I've got the goon recordings, but I haven't listened to them.
They're priceless. Love them.
I haven't listened to them in over a decade. I have to admit, I haven't listened to them in over a decade. But I used to listen to them all the time. I actually love the Goon Show. I really did. And most people are going, huh? Look, type into YouTube.
We're showing our age.
The Goon Show, and you'll it's kind of a cross between, I don't even know what it's a cross was between, to be honest.
Nuts. Yes.
It was, it was a bit crazy, but it was funny.
I'll shoot you with this banana. Bang! Oh, you swine! It was loaded.
If you get a chance, look it up. You'll find out that we are completely crazy, the two of us. And this is probably where we got crazy from, watching or listening to the Goon.
Goons, yes.
Listening to the Goon. Yes, it's not a watch, it's a listen because it's an old radio.
Yeah, exactly. Or radio.
An old radio show. So yes, we are old. Just go with it.
Yep. Trying to remember who was in it.
Harry
Sellers, Spike Milligan.
Seacombe, Spike Milligan, and
Harry Seacombe. Thank you. And Peter Sellers.
Peter Sellers.
That's right.
Yeah.
We are
Really,
digressing again.
three of probably the greatest British comedians around at the time. In fact, probably of all time.
You bet.
And they're just funny as they're hilarious, a whole lot of them. And to get them together in a show, they're even funnier. I mean, yeah. We've gone right off track now, which
Yes. They could make you believe that they could sail the seas in an old prison. And you'd believe it.
Or the little blue bottle. I love the little blue bottle.
Yeah, that was funny stuff.
I love the blue bottle. We should review an episode of that. That would go down like try and review it, but do it as a Star Trek kind of thing. That would be.
We couldn't do it with a straight face. So.
No, I don't think we could. We'd lose it because we'd just keep repeating all the lines. I'm not. I would. I know me. I'd be repeating lines left, right, and centre. And everybody who's now going to be watching the end of going, these guys have lost it. They've completely lost it. Yes, we have. Absolutely lost it. And on that note of losing it, I think we're going to end this.
Yes, sir.
Have a look at this. This is probably complete utter chaos, but you know what we do. We will be doing another one. There's still more Star Trek. In fact, there's enough Star Trek for over a decade's worth of these. And we can make a complete mess of all of them. So don't worry.
Yeah, once we're finished with the series, we might turn our attention to the movies.
Oh, yeah. Wait till we get to the J.J. Abrams one. That will just go.
Field day.
That'll be about a 10-minute episode because we won't be able to do much more than 10 minutes. All right, look, I'm going to pull this up. Thank you for watching it. Anyone who has, like normal, we'll leave all the bits and pieces, all the links and everything in the bottom. And if you want to leave a comment, please by all means do, but try and leave a constructive and a nice one. I just can't handle bad comments, but just try and be nice about it. And by all means, you don't have to like us, just accept us kind of thing.
And be respectful.
Yeah. All right, guys, you just take care and we'll do another one and we'll have some fun again. See ya.
Take care.